Yesterday, Brandon and I kicked off a new series here called Altered, How the Resurrection Changed Everything. And we're looking at, over the next few weeks, the moments that happened before and after that empty tomb. And how not only did they alter Jesus's friends, family, and the entire world at that time, but each and every one of those moments, they also alter us. How they're going to alter our identity, our perspective, our gatherings, how we view life, and even how we view eternity. And so we kicked off the series by going up the steps to the upper room. And the disciples are getting ready to do what they think is what they usually do at the very beginning of the year, getting ready to celebrate the Passover. And as they're getting ready to celebrate this Passover meal, Jesus starts to let them know that some of the things that they symbolized and connected only with people of the past, the children of Israel, that he's about to let them know that those mementos, that those symbols are actually going to be personal for them. And we talked about yesterday that we all have certain things in our life, certain symbols, certain things we see, whether it's mom and dad's house or grandma's house, that bring up important feelings within us that are pivotal to our family legacy and things that we always remember because they're a part of us. And the reason is those symbols are personal. What he's letting us know is that when we break the bread and we drink the cup, that it's not just something that they're remembering back to the blood that was shed and put over the door of those as the death angel passed. And the bread was not just there for them to carry on their journeys and to celebrate the Passover feast anymore, but Jesus himself is going to be that bread and that cup. And so as he's getting ready to talk about this, and he's getting ready to share this moment, we talked about how it's awesome to think about the fact that Jesus, to describe the greatest event in all of human history, he didn't decide to have like a 3-point sermon. There was no podium. There was no PowerPoint. There was a table. And so he sat across the table with his friends. And as he was sharing that meal with them, one thing we talked about is that Jesus directed it all. He was serving. He took, he blessed, he broke, he gave. And as that was going on, he dropped a big bombshell on them. He said, one of you is going to betray me. And what was interesting is Judas's response was very different than all the other disciples. And if you remember, as we talked about yesterday, the other disciples said, "Is it I, Lord?" And then Judas said, "Is it I, Rabbi?" That the disciples saw Jesus as Lord, but Judas only saw him as a teacher. And it's sad to think about that he sat at all the teachings, he went to all the places, he saw all the miracles, but he saw him just as a teacher alone. And we talked about yesterday that there's great danger in knowing the teachings, but not knowing the teacher. And so it was around that meal that our hearts have the opportunity to be exposed, but not just exposed, they have the opportunity to be altered. Because as we're around this table and we reflect back not just on what Christ has done, we also reflect on ourselves. And as Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 11, this idea of examination, because for them, there was no place of division at the table. It was a place of unity. It was supposed to be a place of family. He wanted them to examine themselves to see if this were so. And so it was interesting that as they're examining themselves, they want to make sure, and I love the fact that the disciples didn't say, "I bet it was him, I bet it was them." I love and appreciate the fact that they understood, there's the possibility of even betrayal in my heart. And then, of course, as we know, Judas does end up betraying Jesus. But one of the things that we talked about yesterday was how when Jesus was sharing that meal with them, it was almost a picture in a way of Psalm 23, where it says that the Lord has prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemies. That around that table where Jesus was also, of course, going to wash their feet too and break bread with them and share a celebratory meal with them, that at that same time there was somebody that was a betrayer. And it's an amazing picture of how even Jesus chooses to be with us in our good moments and in our bad moments. But it also helped us understand that in some way or another, we've all been an enemy to God. We've all sinned against him, but he still gave us a seat. And so since God has given us a seat at the table, we talked about yesterday that it's time for us to set the table. And so we want to encourage each and every one of you to find somebody to break bread with, to have somebody to have in your home. And it's through those face-to-face interactions that not only do you get to enjoy something that is near and dear to the heart of God, but you too grow in relationship. And so then, of course, Jesus broke that bread and he drank that cup. And we talked about the bread symbolized holiness. But the other thing about bread is that because it didn't have leaven, which of course the leaven the leavened bread would symbolize something puffed up. Yes, it was also symbolizing that, but this was bread because it could be carried on long trips. It would not spoil. And so it's something that they could carry with them on a journey. And so we talked about how every Sunday when we break this bread, that the communion is food for our journey. It's something for every single day of our life. And then we looked at the cup and how he talks about how his blood is poured out for us. And for the disciples, this would have been a shocking moment because to them, the highlight of the meal before with the Passover was the lamb, but Jesus is letting them know that he is the lamb. And this blood is going to signify something new. And that something new is something that's happened. It happens every time that we experience the grace and the goodness of God. But he also lets us know that it's also about hope for the future. That one day too, we're going to have a wonderful time and a meal with God as well. And so I hope you guys had a great Sunday yesterday. And I want you to go ahead and get out your phones and reach out to somebody who you plan to have over and go ahead and set up that time to break bread together and to share a seat at the table because you have been given a seat at the table. I love you, Madison. I hope you have a great day.